this is Hui Lian from Craft Atelier. We had the cast-on party yesterday for the One Stroke Bolero pattern, and so we are making this video to explain the schematics as well as how the pattern works for those who missed our cast-on party in the studio. Right? So let's take a look at the pattern. So this is the One Stroke Bolero pattern where we have written the pattern to be suitable to be used with all yarn weights. So within our pattern, we have got the numbers that work for you if you're using fingering weight, sport weight, DK and worsted. Right? So if you have got yarn that is not quite within these weights, whether it's finer or chunkier, bulkier, you can use the fit to measure option to figure out what numbers to cast on and how many stitches you need to leave for your armhole and so on, right? So for these yarn weights, we have recommended tension. If the tension that you have, your gauge, doesn't quite fit what is here, you can also use the fit to measure to figure out what numbers will work for you, even if the numbers actually are recommended for a different tension, right? And so you have all these numbers that would seem to be a bit mind-boggling, but we'll go through with the schematics as well as a mini sample to help you figure out where the numbers should be used. Okay, so let's take a look at illustration for how this pattern would work. Okay, so if you were to imagine that this is your cast on line. Okay, so this line is my cast on line. Okay, so as you're working, okay, you would find that you'll be working a number of rows, and by the time you get to how deep you want your collar fold to be, you would be creating your first fold line. So this is where in the pattern it says the first folding line is created and you will be creating your first fold line like this. Okay, you will continue to knit enough to create the second fold line. So there are actually two lines that you need to create for folding. So first line, second line. Okay, it is at this point where you attach the neck fold to the body itself. Okay, and you will continue to work for the rest of the body until you are done with the pattern. Okay, so your beginning of round is actually not at the corners, not in the center, but slightly off. The reason being why it is slightly off or why it is designed that way. Okay, the reason why we call this a one stroke bolero is so that when we are binding off the armhole first on one side, then we are joining this in a 3 needle bind off for the back of the bolero, and then we would bind off separately the armhole as well. Okay, so this creates the structure of the bolero, right? So the center bind off would join the front and back pieces, or top and bottom pieces rather, together like this. Okay, so you would have two armholes left at the sides. Okay, and the whole thing would look like this. Okay, so your beginning of round is actually here. Okay, so if you were to look at what is on your needles, you would start your bind off, your normal bind off, okay, here, right, this stretch. Then you would do your 3 needle bind off here, the center stretch. Okay, and then you continue on your single needle bind off or 2 needle bind off, okay, for your other armhole here. So this is what your bolero will look like when you're wearing it with the two arms extended here. Okay, so with this schematic in mind, now we are going to look at a mini sample with a smaller number of cast-on stitches so that you could see what numbers would work and how to work the first folding line. Okay, so based on this table, my number of cast-on stitches is 44 stitches. So I would put here 44. Okay, and then the armhole, I'm deciding that it would be 6 stitches long. So I will put in 6. I'm going to use 4 stitches for my neck fold, so it will be just 4 here. Okay, and to figure out this portion, what is making sense is actually right. So what gives these numbers? Okay, you have to see where the attachment is, but because your beginning of round is not centered, you need to count the number of stitches for your armhole, the number of stitches between your neck fold and your armhole to the neck fold itself, which is why there's some math going on here. Okay, so with this, we are looking at the full number of stitches for your armhole, which is 6, and from that point, from this point to where the attachment for the neck fold is, for my mini sample, it's going to be 6 stitches. So I will have 6 plus 6. So I have to work 12 stitches before I do the attachment here, and then I carry on with the rest of the round. Okay, so that is what these numbers are designed to help you figure out. Okay, so the formula for figuring out these numbers are also given here in the first column. Okay, so you can do a fit to measure for your own size and yarn required. Okay, so let's take a look at the instructions. So the instructions here given for the first fold line is given in this section. Okay, so we are going to look at how you work this section. Okay. So in the pattern, according to this pattern, I'm supposed to have worked 12 stitches from the beginning of round to start my neck fold marking. Okay, so if you look, this is my beginning of round. Okay, I would have done 12 stitches, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, I finished the first 12 stitches that I need to do, and now this is where I'm creating the fold line. So to create a fold line, I would need 4 markers. Okay, so I'm going to put the first marker here to indicate that this is the beginning of the stretch where my neck fold is going to be. Okay, and then I'm going to create the number of stitches that is indicated for here. Okay, so I need 4 stitches of knit stitch. So you're not doing pattern. So the first 12 stitches I'm following pattern, a 2 by 2 ribbing. But for this neck fold area, I'm just going to do knit. So I'm going to knit 4 stitches. 2, 3, and 4. So once I'm done with this 4 stitches here, I'm also going to leave a marker, okay, to indicate that this is the stretch where the neck fold would happen, okay, where I'm going to attach the stitches later. Now, in order for us to keep track, because as you are knitting, you would lose track of this particular fold line if you don't mark it, so you will need 2 additional markers. You are going to mark on the purl bump of the first stitch, as well as the purl bump of the last stitch. So a total of 4 markers. Okay, so the yellow markers, because you have attached to the purl bumps itself, they are staying put. Okay, so these are not going to move as you continue your knitting to create more rows. But your blue markers would move with you as you are knitting because they are loaded on the needle and cable. So once you're done with this segment, you will continue on, proceed with the rest of the pattern. So you are going back to the pattern work, which in this case is a 2 by 2 ribbing. So I would carry on with the 2 by 2 ribbing, and this segment is now measured out. So what we have done by making it an all knit is to create a fold line. Okay, because this would naturally allow the fabric to fold, and this is what we mean in the pattern in this segment here by saying how to create the first fold line. Okay, and you have a diagram that shows you, a photo that shows you how to place the 4 markers. So you need 2 on your cables and 2 that are marked directly on the stitch itself. Okay, and you would then follow the instruction to create the second fold line, which is here. Okay, so that you can do your double fold for the collar, right? And after you are done, you would need to knit the entire neckband till you are able to get to the 2 folds and being able to attach. Okay, which in this case look as if you have 3 times the length, because if I'm going to do 2 folds, I need 1 length here, 2 length here, and then the 3rd length where you attach, the point where you attach is actually 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So if you are having an idea that you want your neck fold to be maybe about 2 inches wide, you actually need to have 2 inches here, 2 inches here, and then 2 inches here before you attach the collar here. Okay, so that's what the instructions are meant to illustrate in this up to this point. And then beyond this point, the pattern tells you just to knit all the rounds, which is in stockinette. Okay, so like we mentioned in the previous video, if you have an idea for what pattern you want to put in, you can use a textured pattern instead of just plain stockinette. Okay, as long as the patterns fit that particular stitch count. Okay, and if you have queries about how you could do that and how you could fit in the numbers and how you could better manage the fit to measure options, you can pop by the studio and we can help you with the numbers, right? And we can help you sort out the needles you need as well as the tension that you're working with. It will be a good idea to make an appointment with us, so let us know via messaging, email, texting that you have queries and you'd like to come down to the studio on this day at this time, so that we can set aside the time to help you with this, in case we are busy with classes or attending to other customers and we may not be able to spend a good amount of time explaining how to work this out. Okay, so this pattern is a fairly manageable and easy pattern as long as you are clear and understand what you're trying to do with the folds and all this, because there is a way for you, of course, to manage this without going into the hassle of figuring out the numbers. You can do the fold after you're done with the whole bolero. It was just designed to be a one-stroke bolero in a sense where you don't have to do assembly and you don't have to do additional stitching after the project itself, right? So if you have questions, do pop by the studio and let us know how we can help you manage this particular knit-along project. Right? So it is a fairly manageable project for beginners, okay, as long as you are okay with working stockinette stitch and some purling involved, right? Because you have got the ribbing or the moss stitch pattern for the neckband, right? We hope that this particular video helps to explain the schematics a lot better than this little diagram that we have. So this diagram was meant to be an attempt at explaining the schematics, right? And so we are hoping that with this little explanation of how the construct is done, right, you have a better idea of what you are actually creating as you are following the pattern, so that it is not like you wondering where is this leading to, because it's a giant tube as you are knitting, right? Okay, so we hope you enjoyed this knit along, and do let us know if you have any feedback for the pattern itself and how we could better manage the instructions for the pattern. If you find that to be slightly, confusing, but it is pretty wordy, right? So if you have a way for us to improve this particular pattern, let us know. Bye bye.